Okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead and start recording. Um, the aim of this video is to complete or move further along a project that I'm working on. Um, right now, I have a website that I am hosting, and what I want to do is keep it as simple as possible. Why am I trying to do that? So, this may sound odd, but there are a multitude of solutions out there that are way overkill for what I actually want. Sure, I can go onto a website builder and spin something up in about a couple of hours, probably less. However, you don't get that full control over the CSS and the layout um, working with some of these drag and drop tools. Now I know that there's ways where you can like input your own CSS and things like that, but the tool starts working against you when you want to start using these escape hatches within the product, within those products, I should say. Now there are stuff like static site generator, which is exactly what I'm, I guess, talking about or building. However, a lot of the static site generators right now are complicated. Um, we can just look at a few right now, and as you see, what are we ultimately trying to do? So a bundle that can be hosted in a website, or all you need to host a website is just an output of some HTML, some, I'll just do this in my terminal number 9. Let me go ahead and zoom in. So, what do you need really to host a website? And after digging around with some like self-hosting stuff, you don't actually need a whole lot. All you need is a grouping of files that is then hosted behind a web server. This pattern is just has deep roots in our infrastructure at the moment. And these web servers are Nginx, Apache, and the easiest way to do this is just point whatever URL that you are exposing uh, to a folder that contains like media assets. And as soon as that is spun up, then boom, you have a website that's being hosted. That's it. So how do we go from just having a simple directory of a lot of basically 3 types of files, if you don't count like media files, which as the internet is trending towards hypermedia type websites, you can't fully discount that. But ultimately, what a website is made up of 3 types of files: HTML file, CSS file, and JavaScript file. Now, these don't have to. Why? These don't have to all be in their own file. No, you may be saying, yeah, you can have HTML that exists in its own, uh, you know, in its own single file. So yeah, that's correct. However, what I want to say is that with just these 3 types of files, you can virtually host any website that will look at as good as you want it to. So, why am I going on in circles about this? Because the web landscape has you use these extremely complicated tools. and it makes creating websites complex. And so now we're going from the simple model of you only need, a couple of files to just host a website, to like now you need, huge projects with giant build scripts and different languages just to be able to send data, or to be able to just render, even static type sites. So, uh, what am I trying to build? I'm trying to just build a one-page landing page. However, since I want it to look good, it will need to be a little bit complicated with some of the CSS that's needed, some of the animations that are being used. So we do need a lot of CSS to make things look clean. Like there's no way around that. We also do need JavaScript to make it interactive, to make elements, interact beautifully with touches of the mouse and other effects that people have become used to. So these tools like the Next to the World, Hugo, well, in this case, we want to talk static sites. These tools are good for bigger websites, not for your one-off landing page. So sure, what you can do is you can go and handwrite all these files, but the markup makes it difficult to start composing individual components, individual, like to write things in individual component structure using just native files, right? So then that's why you need these complex build systems to go ahead and wire everything together. And so then you get the best of both worlds, where you can componentize stuff, and then you can also have a static bundle that you expose and host, making it very easy in that sense. However, now you're dealing with complex software that somebody else wrote, and you have to go and learn that. So cool. Like you can use React to render static websites. I like React. It makes writing things easy. However, just like all this NPM nonsense and things like that, you don't even, you run this, you don't know what is going on underneath. So then when things start to break, as your website may start to age, you may be having to like start updating NPM and Gatsby and whatnot, or like start updating your NPM dependencies, as Gatsby will bring a bunch in. Then like you're dealing with that tax or burden of having to do that. All right, so the simple solution may be just, hey, pay for them to host it, and you may not have that problem. Ultimately, you do still carry some overhead. Hugo is a similar type thing written in Go. You have to work with the Go templating language, which is fine. It's pretty good. I like it, but templating languages, templating languages are just somewhat ugly to work with. The beauty of Gatsby is that you can work directly with React and be able to use the composability of React and the ergonomics of React and end up with this nice static website. I think the web moved away from or moved to React in response to a lot of these templating languages that people previously had to write before client-side rendering became viable or was a thing. Like each language kind of has their own HTML markup. So if we look up Python, templating library, you're going to see stuff like Jinja, which is, I think, pretty hardened. It's used in a lot of Flask applications, if I'm not mistaken. but like as you start looking into these templates, you'll see that these or like Python in general doesn't have a one best way to, or one only way to do it. So like I know I know like Jinja is very similar to the Django templating language, but like if you're switching between the two, then like there's going to be some differences. So that's another big one. Um, a lot of you know, a lot of big websites are Django based, and yeah, the syntax is similar to Jinja. But as I was looking into this project, and I just want to pump out, you know, it's a one-page landing page initially, right? I shouldn't need to have to go and create some Django project for that, right? That's the other problem. And then you come to Go, and you know, it has its own syntax, its own, you know, like ways of converting its structs to its structs to logic within a template, right? And then that template gets rendered, and then it's sent, and then it's nice, clean, viewable HTML. So a lot of these approaches are good. It's just that now you're specializing in just this one technology and having to learn that and then having to deal with some of the drawbacks of that. So I want to simplify that. And that is my idea for working on this project right now. So what makes my thing different than some of the other I guess, static site generation, you know, technology out there? What I'm ultimately trying to accomplish is to keep complexity to a minimum. I don't believe you should have to go and learn, you know, all this crazy layers of tooling just to render out a single page, right? Why is there such a jump between having to, you know, write out HTML like by hand in one document versus, you know, one of these heavy-handed tools like Gatsby or Django? For a small website that only has a couple of pages, you don't really need something like that. And so you should really minimize the amount of like tooling that you have to touch to maintain this and update your website to make it a lot easier on the developer. And what it also does is bias. This also keeps us close to the metal, right? The closer you are to the metal, or like what is actually being done, the less like voodoo magic that people like envision, right? They have a much better understanding for like how their website is getting, they're wondering about like how their website is, you know, getting from, you know, a server to a client. And then understanding, well, how do I make that faster? How do I make that how to make that better, more robust, etc. I don't think just layering stacks on top of it gets you there. You can create really lean like bundles of files and send them out, and you know, get very good performance out of that. Caching is great and all, but you know, for a lot of WordPress sites, they can't run at decent speeds without a cache, running through like a CDN. That seems a little odd to me. yeah, you can't beat you can't beat the speed of light, but you can make stuff more efficient, and more robust. And I think the way you do that is by slicing through abstractions and utilizing the tools and APIs, utilizing the tools and the APIs that you have at a more closer to how the machine is actually running it. So that was my rant. Now let's actually write some code here. So what do I have here? So I have a project that renders out my output file, or sorry, my output directory, which is then uploaded onto the server. And this is all you need to actually serve a website, as we were talking about earlier. This beautiful piece of HTML, various assets such as images, some CSS. It's broken up for a reason, and I'll explain why. But this is all you need to have a beautiful website rendered. So what is the problem that I have currently with this approach? It makes this is good. It's very remedial. I am able to render. Okay, I guess I should explain how, from a development perspective, this is helping me out. So, as you see there, that was my rendered single HTML file. Right? Now, writing this by hand is a nightmare. You don't want to. It's for. It would be way too time consuming as a solo person or group of people to sit there and maintain this by hand. So what you need to do to be able to grep everything that's happening is start to componentize each individual pieces, and then to be able to modify those, and then ultimately render out your one big piece of HTML. So, how are we going to deal with that? So, we have, so how does that actually work, right, in practice? So, the first thing we're going to start with is we're going to have our outer layer of HTML. This contains all your basic stuff for a website. It imports some sort of favicon, imports the JavaScript file for us to do our dynamic content, and then just some other basic stuff that's needed. Okay, but you'll see here that we have this body, and this is going to be the outer tag for everything else that's going to fill up the website. So we need to just inject CSS here. Inject HTML, basically a big chunk of HTML there, and then our file will be complete. I'm not going to save that. Okay. So now, so now let's go over, what is going to go in there. So now I have individual components that represent a piece of the website. So we have our top bar here, and every website has a navigation bar. So that's what that represents, componentized. We have our